Hello everybody. Today we'll be talking about Article 7 Issuing Bank Undertaking of UCP 600. Okay, so let me read Article 7A I for you. Okay, provided that the stipulated documents are presented to the nominated bank or to the issuing bank and that the terms and conditions of the credit are complied with, the issuing bank must honor if the credit is available by side payment, deferred payment, or acceptance with the issuing bank. Okay, so what does it mean is that as we have talked in our previous article 6 also, that the beneficiary can either present the document to its nominated bank or directly to the issuing bank as well. Okay, so if the document presented by the beneficiary are credit compliant and meets all the terms and conditions of the credit and UCP 600, then the issuing bank must honor means make the payment. Okay, if the credit is available by side payment, side payments means like making the payment within 5 banking days upon receipt of the document. Okay, following 5 days, or deferred payment on installment basis, or acceptance means on maturity date the issuing bank must make the payment. And in number II it is mentioned like if the credit is available by side payment with a nominated bank and the nominated bank doesn't pay. Okay, like in LC clause we write available with by any bank in Singapore by side payment. If the terms is like that, and if the nominated bank doesn't pay to the beneficiary also, the issuing bank is fully liable to make the payment. Okay, and in III it is mentioned like if the credit is available by deferred payment with a nominated bank and the nominated bank does not incur its deferred payment undertaking, or having incurred its deferred payment undertaking doesn't pay at maturity. Okay, so in the case of deferred payment also, if the nominated bank does not like make the payment, or if it has committed to make the payment deferred payment also, if the nominated bank doesn't pay, then the issuing bank must make the payment. And in IV it is mentioned like if the credit is available by acceptance with a nominated bank and the nominated bank does not accept a draft drawn on it, or having accepted a draft drawn on it, it doesn't pay at maturity. So here also the nominated bank, if it doesn't accept a draft, and if it says if it doesn't like make the payment on the maturity date, or if it has accepted the draft and committed to make the payment on maturity date to the beneficiary, and if it doesn't pay also, the issuing bank is fully liable to make the payment, as ultimately it is the responsibility, it is the undertaking of the issuing bank to make the payment on the maturity date to the nominated bank. Okay, now, or in V it is mentioned like pay at sight, accept a draft drawn by the beneficiary, and pay at maturity, or pay at maturity if the credit is available by negotiation with a nominated bank and the nominated bank does not negotiate. Like in LC available with by any bank in Singapore by we write negotiation as well. Okay, so any bank in the Singapore are can negotiate the document, but unless the nominated bank is a confirming bank, okay, the nominated bank is not liable to negotiate the document. Okay, so which we will discuss in our later article as well about nominated bank. So here also, even though the LC mentions any bank in Singapore by negotiation, and if the nominated bank does not negotiate the document, or mm, like if it doesn't negotiate the document on side basis or accept a draft drawn by the beneficiary, or if it doesn't pay at maturity also, the issuing bank is like liable to make the payment. Okay, now let's move on to VI, that is reimburse a nominated bank that honors or negotiates. So let me read the first paragraph. Reimbursement for the amount of the presentation under a credit available by acceptance or deferred payment is due at maturity, whether or not the nominated bank prepaid or purchased before maturity. So here let me create one scenario for you. So here what happens is the beneficiary presents document to the nominated bank. The nominated bank check the document, and if it finds credit compliant, then forward the document to the issuing bank. Okay, so since the LC is issued on reimbursement basis, so what happened here is the document might not reach to the presenting bank, or it may be on transit. So what the beneficiary does is, a beneficiary bank or the nominated bank does is, it sends MT754 to the issuing bank. Okay, and in MT754 it will mention that it will claim a certain amount or the document value amount on blah 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 date, and the message must mention like document are credit compliant. Okay, so if the issuing bank receives an MT754, and if it finds the message like documents are credit compliant, then what the issuing bank does is it sends MT740 to its reimbursing bank, means the bank where it has got its Nostro account. Okay, and in the message it will mention like to honor the claim received from the nominated bank. Okay, on side basis or on the maturity date. Okay, on the prescribed maturity date. So here in first paragraph what it mentioned is that no matter the nominated bank make the advance payment or purchase the draft before maturity, okay, the issuing bank is fully liable to reimburse a nominated bank. Okay, so I mentioned before, I gave you the example like if the message mentions credit compliant, documents are credit compliant in 754, or in the or if the presented documents are credit compliant, then the issuing bank must reimburse to the nominated bank. Now let's move on to the last paragraph of PI, where it mentions like an issuing bank's undertaking to reimburse a nominated bank is independent of the issuing bank's undertaking to the beneficiary. So here what happened is that the issuing bank's undertaking to reimburse a nominated bank is independent. Like as we have mentioned, as we have talked before also, the beneficiary can directly present a document to the nominated bank or directly to the issuing bank as well. Okay, usually the beneficiary presents the document to the issuing bank if the nominated bank doesn't honor or negotiate its document. So if the beneficiary presents the document to the nominated bank, and if there arises any disputes or misunderstandings or any issues, then it will be between like the nominated bank and the issuing bank. Whereas if the beneficiary presents the document to the like directly to the issuing bank, then if any disputes or misunderstandings or any issues arises, then it will be between the issuing bank and the beneficiary. And here the nominated bank doesn't have to do anything uh, with the issuing bank or with the beneficiary. Okay, so that is the meaning of independent. Now let's move on to B. The issuing bank is irrevocably bound to honor as of the time it issues the credit. Okay, so once the issuing bank a, a letter of issues a letter of credit, then from that time the issuing bank is irrevocably bound to make the payment to the beneficiary. I mean beneficiary bank. Okay, so that's all about this article 7 of UCP 600. Hope you like this video, and if you do have any comment, please write it down. Thank you.